Hi everybody, Scott here. I hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to talk about how INFJs can protect themselves. Now we can all have, or we all do have, you could say like a protective layer around us in order to be in the world, to sort of protect ourselves from harm, protect ourselves from people. We can all have sort of parts of ourselves that we create, which then creates a protective layer that we use in the world. Now, INFJs can, I want to present something that I think helps to represent a way that INFJs can do that can be different to other people or the other types. Now, this is not 100% how all INFJs do it. It could be a way, or I think it's a way INFJs can do it, and I think most INFJs will identify with it to a certain degree. Some INFJs might identify with it 100%, others might just be aspects of it. So just see it as an exploration, a way of looking at this topic and just see what fits and what doesn't fit. I'm just going to draw something up on the board here just to sort of help paint a picture, essentially. So the INFJ, if we see this as the protective layer, you could almost look at it like a shield that protects the INFJ from the outer world. Let me just move that a little bit to get there we go. So what I think happens, which is different to the way I think others do it, and I'll draw others down here. Now again, there might be others that identify with this and vice versa, so it's not 100%, but I think there's a theme here that I think most INFJs will identify with. This is obviously an invisible shield, right? It's you could say our defense mechanism, or a way that we protect ourselves. Now I think what happens is essentially INFJs use their protective shield to protect what's in here. There's different ways of looking at this, which I won't go into in this video. For those that are interested in looking at how we protect ourselves and moving back more into true self and all of that sort of thing, come along to my Inside Outers live stream that I put on every month, on the last Thursday of every month for people in the US. We would sort of go into the self and exploring personal growth and things like that. But just looking at this as like a protective layer. This protective layer can either be you could say extroverted or introverted. Now I think for the most part INFJs, not just because they're introverted, I don't think it's necessarily to do with that, but this protective layer is kind of protecting what's inside. Whereas for others, they can protect more extrovertedly, in the sense that their protection is goes outward, you could say. So it could look like ways of speaking, it could look like ways of behaving. To the INFJ, the INFJs pick this protective mechanism up quite easily. In a sense, the more someone tries to protect themselves through the use of the shield and almost like extrovert their defense mechanisms, the more the INFJ can see them. And the INFJ can see through this, the more they show it, and the INFJ can see what's going on behind the shield. It's like it doesn't work. Now the INFJ could tend to more have a protective shield that's more focused in on protecting the inner self, as opposed to projecting it out into the world to keep people at bay. So it's like the INFJ has a protective layer that's you could say hidden, but it's more just private, that is employed to protect the sacredness of the inner world, and presents outwardly fairly, you could say fairly authentically. Like there's not a lot to sort of pick up in regards to defense mechanisms, although some people have said that INFJs can use insight and truth, if you like, as a defense mechanism. So for the INFJ, they see this as very non-defensive and non-threatening because they're trying to be authentic, and their protective layer is kind of there to keep people out and keep the sacredness or the sensitivity of the inner world within. Whereas others, generally speaking, their defensive protection is extroverted out as certain defenses. And the INFJ over here, if we get that in the picture, the INFJ picks all of this stuff up, and it actually lets the INFJ know what is going on inside of them, or inside of the other people, within themselves. So ultimately, the defense mechanism doesn't work in a sense. Another way of looking at it is that for the INFJ, the defense mechanism is designed more to keep things out and protect what's in, because the INFJ is usually quite aware of what is within them that they're trying to protect. Again, generally speaking, and not sort of creating, us versus them type thing. For others, and not all others, but often for others, they're trying to push people away actively through a defensive, protective mechanism, if you like, to sort of protect their territory. It could sort of be a physical territory, but is actually coming from what they're not aware that they're trying to protect within. So this can be why a lot of people say they can't get a read on the INFJ, because they're not really extroverting a whole lot of stuff for other people to get a sense of what's going on within. And it's just an interesting idea that INFJs could use insight and truth as a way to protect themselves. And the idea for the INFJ, or the hope for the INFJ, is that their insight and their truth and their authenticity will be met with the same. It'll be met with truth, authenticity, and so on. But it often doesn't. It often is met with this, for the most part, because what the INFJ is presenting to the other people is threatening it's threatening. Truth and vulnerability and insight and authenticity can be very threatening to others that don't know who they are. And that threat can lead to that defensive extroverting that pushes the INFJ away. And that can be the dance that often INFJs can feel with people in their world, or people that they come across, is the INFJ is trying to present authenticity to create connection, but it often invites defensiveness in a lot of people, pushing the INFJ away. And this approach, for the INFJ that does this, it's almost unstoppable, in the sense that this is just who they are. This is how they engage with life in the world. However, often this approach is, when it's met with protective, defensive parts of others, wounds them in some way, puts them, does affect them. But this protective shield, for the most part, not in all cases, but for the most part, the pain or the impact that the defensive part in others has on them is privately experienced. It happens behind the wall, if you like, or behind the protective layer. For the most part, because the very way that the person is being defensive tells the INFJ that their pain that they're causing is not welcome to be brought forward or brought up, because it would just lead to more defensive protectiveness from the others. So anyway, I hope all of that makes sense. Just one last thing I thought of after I recorded this video is that for a lot of INFJs, the shield is actually invisible to themselves. Like it's also invisible to other people. There's such a subtlety to the way in which the INFJ protects their inner world, that the way they do it can actually be, in a sense, beyond the conscious awareness of the INFJ. And the reality is, in some cases, that this shield can be, while very subtle and almost unable to be seen, can be just as problematic and powerful in the way in which it protects, and some of the liabilities that self-protection can have, as the other people's sort of more extroverted protection mechanisms can have on themselves. So what I mean is, this defensive posture that some people can have ultimately gets in the way of the person's ability to have connection, have relationship, find meaning and purpose, and so on. It can kind of sabotage life. It's a lot less obvious in the INFJ, but I think in some respects it can be just equally as powerful in its problematic nature in regards to the INFJ's desire for connection, and in some respects it can get in the way of their desire for authenticity and so on. So what I do often in counselling, a lot of counselling actually is about helping people to just connect with and understand and engage with their protective layer and their protective mechanism in order to understand it, so that they can find a new way of engaging the world. In a sense, it's similar for the INFJ, it's just done in a little different way, or it requires a lot more, like a keener eye on actually recognizing what it's doing to protect the inner world. So what I do in counseling is help people to kind of understand their shield, their protective layer, and go deeper. So for the INFJ, sometimes understanding how this is operating in their world can actually lead to a deepening of their self-awareness and a deepening into their own inner journey, if you like, which then can lead to, you could almost say, a different kind of authenticity. It's still being authentic, but in a way it's being, the INFJ can be present and more authentic when this is further understood, and in a sense you could say the problematic nature that this can have can be dismantled in a way that it enables more authenticity, and that's something that I help people to do in counselling. For those looking to like explore defense mechanisms and go deeper into themselves in whatever way that means, it means for them or for you, come along to the live stream on the last Thursday of the month for everyone in the US, and it's the last Friday for people in sort of the Asia Pacific region. Thanks for watching the video, and I'm also a counsellor and an MBTI practitioner. If you're interested in the services that I provide, click on the link in the description. Please give the video a thumbs up if you felt that this was a helpful video to you. Please share it if you feel as others might be able to gain some insight into this video, and I'll see you again in another video.